Hello, everyone. My name is Jamil Hewitt. I am the Director of Partnerships for Remote Year and also going to be your MC for today's webinar. Just want to go through a quick little agenda, running order, just so you all know what we plan on discussing here today. So today during RY Unpacked, what's included, we're going to be covering about 4 different areas that we see people have the most questions pertaining to, right? So what are our accommodations like? What's included? What's included in the co-work spaces? What's included with experiences? That's a large one to unpack. And then what's included with staff support. And then the last 10 minutes or so we'll have for question and answers. But feel free to type in your question and answers here at the bottom of the webinar. If you do have any questions, if you want to get something answered during the webinar, we do have our team standing by to answer some of those questions. And then we will highlight some of the most common questions at the end, just so everyone can hear what some of those are as well. Next slide. Again, Jamil here, your MC, and I'm going to also be accompanied by the host for today's webinar, Mr. Juan Salazar, who is our regional director of LATAM. So he's over all of our LATAM cities: Mexico City, Medellin, Buenos Aires, Florianopolis, any and everything that happens in Latin America. Juan is looking after, and Latin America is personally my favorite. Shameless plug. So Juan is going to be delivering some really great information for you all today, along with our panel. Just want to kick off here with some really interesting facts as to why we even got here in the first place, right? Like remote work, right? That's what we're talking about. What is this remote work landscape? How did we get here, and where are we going, right? So about 16% of companies have already adopted a fully remote work model, and we don't see it slowing down anytime soon. There's more stats out there that say remote workers, or digital nomads rather, have a buying power, a travel buying power of over $787 billion. And that's anticipated to grow even more significantly here by this stat that says by 2035, there will be as many as 1 billion digital nomads worldwide. So where we are right now, it's anywhere between the 35 to 40 million digital nomads currently around the world. So if you think about it on this scale, right? If 1 billion is where we're headed by 2035, for us to have anywhere between 35 to 40 million right now, we're still in its very infant stages. So Remote Year really want to position ourselves as the conduit or the vehicle that makes this lifestyle viable to not only you as digital nomads or people who are aspiring to be digital nomads, but to your employers as well, that this is the new wave, and it's coming whether you want it to happen or not. The last one here that I'll highlight is work and travel has provided to reduce stress, because it's an increased it provides an increased work-life balance. And I'll tell you, shameless plug, I love this lifestyle, and I'm just going to show you all why. This is my view. This is my view, and there's no way that you can tell me that your office view is better than my office view. So we're here to provide this for you, provide this experience for you. And this is how we do it, right? By giving you all the information on how to attain this, this lifestyle. So again, what is Remote Year? Just at a very basic high level, Remote Year, we're a global platform of professionals who live, work, and travel remotely. And we've been operating since 2015, and we have a community of work professionals over 5,000. I was going to say something different, but over 5,000. We take care of all of the logistics that you would need in each destination that we take you to, so you don't have to worry about anything but being focused on being productive and making memories and deeper connections. Our community, as I mentioned before, we're 5,000 plus strong and growing, represented by over 70 different nationalities. Our age range is anywhere between 21 being the youngest person who's ever traveled with us and 75 being the oldest. Now, you don't have to be 75. You can be as old, as senior as you would like. But we do have a age minimum of 21 and older to travel with us. We're really proud of our diverse community. So you can see here 42% of our community is people of color, 14% are LGBTQ, 65% are solo women travelers. Shout out to the solo women travelers out there, showing that Remote Year is a safe, reliable platform for solo women to travel with a community. And then 75% of our community are full-time employed. And again, as I mentioned, we are extremely proud of our diverse community that represents inclusivity and diversity across, multiple different areas. So how does Remote Year support the lifestyle? Well, in order to get started with Remote Year, you would need to sign up for a membership. And this membership covers you for a whole year. And for that membership, you would pay $199. And that would give you access to what we call our nation. And the nation consists of that community that I mentioned to you before of 5,000 professionals that you immediately have connections with, travel options to our 80 plus destinations around the world. And that's also growing. Our online internal social media app called the Nation Hub. You also have access to our events, both in real life and digital, such as, these webinars and other fun, get to know you events that we put on for our nation. And then of course, the Remote Year team. You'll get access to the team of professionals and people who live on the ground to help you navigate this lifestyle. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the webinar. Now, the 3 ways to travel with us on Remote Year right now are through our 1-month program, starting from $549, our 4-month journeys, which takes you through one region for 4 months, 1 month each. Or if you're like me, I dove straight into the deep end and got and put myself in a 12-month journey where I traveled with 25 other people around the world for 12 months, one location per month each, and it completely changed my life. So we have something for someone who's a more tenured traveler, and then for the people who just want to kind of get a taste of the lifestyle. So wherever you are in that spectrum, we can definitely help you out. Now, we'll talk about this, what's included, but just wanted to give you a quick little overview of what's included in traveling with Remote Year. So we have accommodations, co-working spaces, because we always want to make sure that our participants are staying productive and making money and, proceeding in their careers. We have experiences, and then also team support. These are the 4, as I mentioned before, that we're going to talk more about in this webinar, but you'll also see, connecting flights are some of the options that would be added into your itinerary, depending on which one you do, 4 months and 12 months. International iOS, which if you are an avid traveler, you know how essential it is to have some type of safety net that's watching your back, or that just has your best interests for you if something goes awry in any of these countries. So these are some of the things that we do offer, depending on which program you decide. And just to make the differentiation here between the 1-month programs that you see, the first 1-month program is without accommodations, right? So that's you plugging into our community for that month, but you kind of want a little bit more flexibility. You want to source your own apartments. You want to get your own airport transfers. You kind of want to do your own thing, but you still want to be connected to the community. And then the 1-month program with accommodations, that is almost the fully connected package with everything included. So you can see the differences. You can see the differences there. And I am going to happily pass it over to the host with the most, Mr. Juan Salazar. Juan, if you want to come off mute and introduce yourself to the folks, I'm happy to pass the baton over to you. And if you all have any questions on any of these things, I'll be keeping an eye out on the question and answer bucket. And yeah, let's get started, shall we?
Thank you, Jermil, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So as Jermil mentioned earlier, my name is Juan. I'm the Regional Director for Latin America. So I oversee all of our operations in South America, Central America, and our pop-up cities in North America as well. Before I dive into what we include at Remote Year, I do want to start with this slide and make sure everyone understands what's not included in our programs. And a couple of things that we do not include are flights, the start, like the flight to arrive into the first city or the last flight to go back. We do include, however, all the in-between flights if you're doing a 4-month or a 12-month journey. Food and drinks are not included. Medical insurance is not included. Private accommodation is not included. However, we do offer, and we're going to talk a little bit more into detail about that in the next couple of slides, but we do offer the option to book your own private apartment if that's what you prefer. Then add-on experiences, which we're going to talk in a couple of slides as well. SIM cards and data are not included. However, in most of our cities, we give you the opportunity to purchase them through us if you want. And then ground transportation is only included on arrival day. And lastly, visas. Visas are also not included in our packages. Before we start, again, I want to introduce our 3 panelists. They are Remote Year participants. Actually, some of them are on program, currently on program, but I will let them introduce themselves. So Alan, why don't we start with you? If you can tell us a little bit about you, where are you located right now, and which programs have you done with Remote Year before?
Thank you, Juan. First, I want to just thank Remote Year for inviting us on this, I know, informational thing. It's awesome. I'm Alan Narden. I'm on a 12-month journey with Baker. It's the first Remote Year program I've ever done. And like Jamil, I dived into a 12-month. I'm currently in the Boston area right now, and I'm in the services industry.
Thank you, Alan. Sandy, what about you?
Great. Hello, everybody. Yes, so I'm, if you looked at the prior slide, I'm on the older side of things. So I'm 63 years old. I started with Remote Year 1-month program, loved it so much in July of 21 that I've signed up for 4-month programs and then months thereafter. I'm in the process of also signing up again to travel with Remote Year from January through April of next year. Fabulous program. I'm located out of Anna Maria Island, Florida. And so, you know, I have to flee anyway because of some of those hurricanes coming through. So Remote Year is always my first choice. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sandy. And last but not least, Jelani, I know you're currently on program. So can you tell us a little bit about you as well?
Sure. My name is Jelani Jackson. I'm originally from South Florida, Fort Lauderdale specifically. And I first started Remote Year back in March of 2019. It was a 4-month program, which is how I ended up meeting Juan when he was a part of the city team in Medellin. And so, yeah, I'm a software engineer for a company in the healthcare industry in the United States. And I'm currently here in Istanbul, taking this call from my place because in the workspace, people were talking about video bombing while I was on here. And I figured, all right, let me not do that. So that's me.
Thank you, Jelani. So before we dive into the first topic, I would like to make a quick poll. It's going to pop up in your screens if you're with us on Zoom. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, you can type the answers on the chat box. But the question is, for you, what would be the most important inclusion as part of the Remote Year programs? So let me launch the poll. You should be seeing it on your screens. And for the LinkedIn, the ones that are watching on LinkedIn, we have 5 options to reply. One is accommodation. The second option is co-work. The third option is events and experiences. The fourth option is staff support on the ground. And then the fifth option is other, in case we didn't mention what's most important to you. Okay, I see the answers coming in. Okay, interesting. I'm gonna share the results right now. And it seems that the most important to most of the people here are the events and the experiences. Second is the accommodation, which is actually going to be the first topic that we're going to talk about today. So hopefully I will be able to answer many of those questions that you have. And yeah, let's start talking about accommodations. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction of what we include in the different destinations at Remote Year, and then we're going to have our panelists tell us a little bit about how their experience have been living in these accommodations on their program. So normally, or not normally, always you will have a private room in a shared apartment. It normally comes in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. Bedding and towels and linens are always included. We always provide standard speed Wi-Fi, although in many of our locations it's usually high speed, but normally we will guarantee normal speed for email and browsing. And then all of our accommodations will be a maximum 25-minute commute to all of our workspaces. The accommodation might vary from destination to destination. Sometimes you'll be in an apartment, sometimes in a house. Sometimes the whole group will be living in the same building. In other cities, you will be spread out in 1 or 2 neighborhoods. But as we mentioned before, always maximum 25 minutes away from the co-working space. The kitchen amenities will vary, and other amenities such as washers, dryers, air conditioning, heating systems. Those will also vary depending on the location we're going. So let me ask our panelists how their experience has been. And Sandy, why don't we start with you? I would like to know how important the accommodation is for you, and what are the biggest differences you have seen from location to location in terms of accommodation?
Yeah, thanks. So accommodations, for me, I think a lot of us who are probably on the call maybe live alone and are used to their own space. So I wasn't sure I wanted to sign up to have a roommate, and yet I did, because why not? Highly recommend that you do, because first of all, there is enough private space within the apartments that you have. And usually, or in all of the spaces I've had, you have your own private bathroom and bedroom, and it makes it a lot better. But secondly, I've been incredibly impressed with the workspaces. I can cite Croatia. When I was first there, I was 2 blocks from the Diocletian's Palace. So anybody who's familiar with that area, that means you're 2 blocks from the Aegean Sea, to the ferry boats, to the yachts in the harbor, everything like that. And the apartment was outstanding, really modern, really beautiful. And that was my first look. Subsequently, I've been at other apartments as well. Each have, I think they're curated really well by the Remote Year staff, because each has either just some amenity that maybe you wouldn't have seen other places, and it's extremely affordable. So for instance, Cape Town, if anybody visits the Cape Town destination, I'm pretty sure that's been the long-standing accommodation we've had for a long time. But again, shockingly, I have a balcony overlooking the sea and a pool, and I'm like, okay, pinch me, who gets this, for a month? So that's outstanding as well, and including Lisbon, Portugal. So completely different situation in Europe. Usually European accommodations are going to be a little smaller. Beautiful apartment in the middle of town, walkable to every destination, and you feel like you're a part of the community. And then last, Valencia, Spain, when I was there, Valencia is also really special. We all were in the same building, which makes it really easy and wonderful. And there was a rooftop space that I'm a yoga teacher as well. So really it was just built-in yoga on the rooftop in Spain. So again, this is why I keep picking Remote Year. It's fabulous. You can have your own space, but yet at the same time, you have the value of the community, and then really nicely curated apartments as well.
Thank you very much, Sandy. And I'm glad you mentioned the roommate part, because I know many people, might be scared of having roommates again, especially with people that they don't know. So Alan, how was it sharing with other people an apartment, especially on month one, that you didn't know anyone in your group?
So for me, our first month was in Vietnam, and I think the first month it is important that you have a roommate because it starts to kind of help build that community, and you get to know each other, and you go to different things together, and so forth. But the accommodations overall have been very great, and I think the other amazing part of the RY experience is that you do have an option to even elect to be private in some countries and cities if you get tired of having roommates, but which I did do at times, not because I was tired of roommates, but I just needed that personal space in different times of the 12-month journey. Especially for 1-monthers, my suggestion and recommendation, as Sandy said too, definitely have a roommate. I think it just enhances the experience and gives you an opportunity to build relationships deeper within that 30, 31 day constraint that you have. Whereas 4-month, 12-month, we have more opportunities to build relationships and grow together.
Thank you, Alan. And then Jelani. So as we mentioned earlier, we have a new perk that's the program only, where you can book your own accommodation and just opt into the other inclusions that Remote Year offer. I know, Jelani, that you are this month in Istanbul on our program in Istanbul, and you opted into booking your own accommodation. Can you tell us a little bit more about why, how that is going, and what you used to find your own accommodation, what methods you used?
Yeah. So for me, I started Remote Year doing a 4-month program in which I did room and have other roommates, which if you haven't done that before, I would definitely recommend, because as the other panelists have mentioned, it's a great opportunity to bond with your group. And then there's just little things throughout the month that you decide, hey, we should go and like get coffee or go get lunch sometime. And it's easier to do that because you're talking to somebody in the same apartment as you. For me, I like the flexibility of being able to like pick and choose the neighborhood that I'm in. For example, in Istanbul, I'm in this area called Moda. And even though I don't drink coffee, there's a bunch of coffee spots for me to come and like work at. And I'm also only a 7-minute walk from the co-working space, and in a different direction, 7 minutes away from the gym that I knew I wanted to go to. So for me, it's more so, all right, I know what gym I want to go to before I even go somewhere. So I'm planning on going to Albania next month. So I'm already in that process right now. And then figuring out, okay, where is everyone going to be located? The co-working space is usually like the place to be where everyone's going to meet up. For example, after this call, I'm probably going to go ahead there and meet up with people. But yeah, so for me, it's just more so flexibility. And usually it's Airbnb that I look through, and you can compare prices too, because you'll be able to see the price that you would get if you were to pay for your private room with Remote Year versus not. But for me, it's more so just flexibility of choosing the neighborhood that I'm in, and I don't want to put that burden on Remote Year.
Thank you, Jelani. And then my last question goes back to Sandy. If you can tell us a little bit about how the commute to the workspace was. How did you feel, walking there, or you've been to a bunch of different cities with us. How was that commute to the workspace every day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each one was different, certainly. The commute to the Lisbon workspace from where I lived was a really great glute workout. I'll tell you that. It was like all uphill, and no, but all good, but beautiful. And again, they're all different. So for instance, the one in Nairobi, Kenya, where, and again, don't be afraid of security or things like that, but there certainly is security there. That's within a block's distance of the workspace. So even if you worked until 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, there was definitely security that could even drop you back off the apartment. And not to scare anybody, it wasn't scary or anything like that, but just in case you want a little extra assurance, you would have that. But perfectly safe, perfectly easy. And the workspaces are really impressive too. So yeah, I have nothing but, I mean, all are different, but all very accessible and easy to get to. And also on your form, when you're filling out what's most important, definitely say that I really want to be close to your workspace. Maybe you want other things too, but if that's important, they're definitely going to put you as close as possible.
Yeah, and that's really important that you just mentioned that, Sandy. And just to share with everyone, we usually send out those surveys about what's more important to you when we're going to do, you know, the apartment matching, or that when we're going to assign the accommodation. So there's definitely proximity to the workspace, or natural light. There's a different, you know, set of questions that we ask you to try to accommodate as best as we can. So definitely, if one of your priorities is to be close to the workspace, we will try our best to accommodate in one of the closest apartments. And then this brings us into our next topic, which is the workspace. In every destination, we will offer a 24/7 workspace. In some destinations, we will offer two options. All of them will have high-speed, stable Wi-Fi, so you can work with no issues. And all of them, as mentioned before, will be maximum a 25-minute commute from your accommodation. And then they usually are located in neighborhoods with a bunch of options of places to eat, restaurants, bars, cafes. We try to select those workspaces with a lot going on, you know, in the neighborhood around them, so you can enjoy your time after work or between work. But there might vary a lot also from destination to destination. For example, the size of the co-work spaces. In some, we have very private, you know, very dedicated to the RY group. In others, for example, in Medellin, where I am right now, it's a big co-work. We have a dedicated area for the remote year groups, but it's a big co-work, and all the common areas are shared with, you know, other travelers, locals that rent spaces in the co-work as well. Some of them might offer monitor rentals, others won't. Some of them might have cafes or restaurants on site, and then the kitchen facilities will also vary a little bit from location to location. Then I would like to ask our panelists how their experience with our co-works was. So the first question about workspace, Jelani, I want to ask this one to you, and it is how important the workspace is for you, and if you use the workspace, you know, on a daily basis, or do you prefer to work from home?
It's a mix for me. Like I like to go to the workspace, like I said, because it's a communal place, especially if you're working in a different time zone. Like I can only imagine what it was like working over in Asia, which I haven't done yet because I don't want to do that just yet. But here in Europe, like we all kind of work similar time zones. And so while the locals might be done with their workday, it's cool to be hanging out while you're knocking out work with your group. And then especially once you're done, everyone kind of goes out and gets something to drink. So I'm in there a few days a week, and other days depending on how many calls I have, even though, just to make sure everyone knows, a lot of the co-working spaces do have call rooms. But for me, it's just one of those things where, you know, I got my screens, and I don't want people like worrying about, oh, who's that behind you and all that good stuff. So yeah, so it's roughly a few days a week. And usually I go, it's because I want to go and hang out with the people that I'm on the trip with.
Thank you, Jelani. And then Sandy, were you able to feel productive working from the different workspace that we offered in all of those destinations?
Yes, absolutely. And I did a hybrid as well, similar to what Jelani said as well. Yes, in fact, it was probably like the old college days where you get more done at the library than you do at home. So I feel like, yes, again, the workspaces are always wonderful. There's private spaces to also have call booths and things like that, sometimes meeting rooms. And I think one of my favorites was actually Guatemala in Antigua, where there's actually an actual plane that's like sitting in the middle of the workspace itself. It's outside, but it was outdoor workspace, really beautiful. And like Jelani said, it's really nice to go in and say hello. But at the same time, it's a very productive atmosphere.
Thank you, Sandy. And then last question for Alan. You know, all of our workspaces vary a lot, as we said before. Some of them have bigger communities where you can, you know, meet locals or other travelers that are passing by. So my question is, did any of those co-working spaces provided any additional value than just a workplace to work from?
Right. First, I'll say all the workspaces were generally very impressive, more than what I even expected personally. And they did offer, especially certain cities offered a lot more value, especially meeting local people. There were times when I received business cards and just even kind of networked or discussed ideas with locals or other nomads that were not even part of RY. So that's a huge value. And the other value that was big for me was I get distracted very easily. So for me, I spent little time in workspaces, but I use them as social scenes a little bit to have fun, coffee shops or whatever. And I think that might have, distracted some of my fellow baker journeymen and women, but it's also fun spaces, right? And I think that was for me, that was value too.
Amazing. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, I think co-work spaces become like the center of everything, of where everything starts, where all the experiences starts. If people are going to go out for dinner, that's where they meet. So it really becomes,
Exactly.
the center place for everyone to start not only work, but all the other activities. Which leads me into our next topic, which is experiences. Remote Year offers a bunch of different experiences in every city. Some of them are included in the program costs, and then other experiences come at an additional costs. Talking about the included experiences each month, we will always have a city orientation presentation to give you, all the details about what you can expect in that month in that specific city. We will have a welcome experience to, try to show you a little bit about the local culture. There will be a language and culture class in every city to tell you more about the slang that they use, some, specific words that we think will make your lives easier while visiting those cities. There will be a step into the city tour, which is usually a walking tour around the neighborhood that we are located, so you can get acquainted, with what we believe are the best restaurants, the best cafes, where you can go, where you shouldn't go as well. Then we have a going local experience to show you more about how people live in the city. And then there will be a bunch of other, social events, facilitated workshop. We will help facilitate workshops, not only within the RY community, but within the extended community of the workspace that we're using. And then lastly, there will be an included farewell experience in every city that you visit. Additionally, we have those experiences that come at an additional cost. We have local experiences that last a couple hours, 2 full day experiences. And then we also have what we call weekend adventures, which are usually a multi-day 2 or 3 night experiences that will take you out of the, of the city, either to another city in the country or to one of the smaller towns in the neighboring areas. So I would like to start asking Alan, what do you think brought more value to your experience when visiting a city out of the included experiences that we offer every month, and why?
The most value that I think was brought by remote year experiences was mostly their uniqueness. Yes, there's some experiences in different cities, different countries where you can find on other platforms, but the majority of what remote year I think offered were very unique, only because you guys obviously have the local network, the local city teams that can curate these experiences. Some of them you can't find elsewhere that I found, and I've done other travel programs, and those are very unique. And I think another understated experience, what I'll call experience, in my opinion, is the positive impact. I personally try to do every positive impact in every city, and that's an experience that you're not going to necessarily get everywhere. And that was amazing, only because it just opens your eyes to so much more, and you see what different cultures, different places, what issues they deal with, what issues they have, and it just broadens your horizons, from my opinion. So the positive impacts are definitely huge, and the majority of the experience provided are I think curated locally by the city teams who obviously are there, and they're locals, and it was special for the most part.
Alan, I love that you mentioned positive impact. It is also
Yeah.
probably my favorite of them all. It's very important for remote year to try to give back to all of these communities that we visit. And it's just really easy to travel the world, but it's not that easy to leave an impact in the communities that we visit. So it's definitely very important to for us to provide those experiences where you can connect with, I don't know, maybe the vulnerable communities in the city you're visiting, or maybe help in any way. There's so many ways that we can help those communities that are in need in every city that we visit. So thank you for that, and I completely agree with you. Then my next question goes for Sandy. And I want to focus more on those additional experiences that come at a cost, the ones that you will purchase on our remote year marketplace. And my question is, if you were able to find experiences, that you like, that you enjoy, if you're able to find something for you in all of those cities that you have visited, and then on average, how many experience do you purchase every month?
The amount of experiences that I purchase, yeah, I definitely have to stay working because they're so good. And I think a lot of times what happens is, while a lot of the group may not sign up for them at first, all of a sudden the bonding and the community, just the community that's built, you don't want to miss out. So it is a fear of missing out. So it is, and it's a good fear, because every single curated experience, which what Alan was talking about too, it's really unique and individual. And yes, you can go on some Airbnb experiences or Get Your Guide or whatever. And absolutely, there are some good ones out there. But the remote year city teams, especially, they know their communities. And I'm going to piggyback on with the positive impact experiences. Along with that, a lot of times leads you into people's homes that you're all of a sudden making a meal with whoever it is that is maybe leading the tour, or a person who lives in that neighborhood. And I know even specifically Cape Town, I got very involved with the positive impact program that they're still running through the Langa Township. And right now it's still going solid. And that's why I want to return in January and see how they're doing with making sure that every child has school uniforms and is picking up trash in neighborhoods. But very powerful. So yeah, again, I know I keep sounding like such a big cheerleader for remote year, but it really is amazing. And you get more value really out of these 1 month programs than, we've all traveled individually. I know that I do that as well. But it just, it's really powerful and wonderful. So yes, say yes to everything if you can. Okay.
Thank you, Sandy. And I love that you're still involved with the positive impact in Cape Town. That's amazing. And then Jelani, a little bit, Sandy talked a little bit about this, but were there any experiences that you wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for remote year?
Yeah, I feel like there are a few of them. I think, especially with the city team that's picked in the various communities, one of the ones that I remember most recently was back in Croatia, where you actually go to Hvar Island and you actually start making food, as Sandy mentioned. Like, you start making food with like this couple that you see at the local market, I think on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so you get to go there, you make food, and then they make this special wine. And it's one of those things where, sure, you might do like a tapas and wine tour, for example, on Airbnb if you're in Valencia, but like, that's just going to a bunch of different restaurants. And then usually what people do is, because we've been brought into this family's home, we usually like donate a little extra, because it's one of those things, they open their home to us, and like, having this great intimate experience between with food and wine, and obviously your community.
Thank you, Jelani. And then lastly, before we move on to our next topic, Alan, anything else that you want to mention? I mean, experiences, there's such a broad variety of experiences all around the different destinations at remote year. Anything that you remember, anything that you want to share additional to everything that was just mentioned?
So yeah, so what stands out is there's so many, and like, you put me on the spot, one. So it's like I don't have, I was on the road 8-9 months. It's a lot going on in there. But here's what I'll say: the thing about the experiences is, I did as many as I could, and I bought as many as I could. Main reason being is it maybe, obviously I'm biased and uh the bakers, I mean, they were good. I wanted to do it with my group, right? So if you're in a 1 month, 12 month, 4 month, it doesn't matter. I did it because I wanted to do it with these people. And that's what I'll always go back to is the, yes, like Sandy said, you can find it elsewhere, but I'm here with these people in remote year. We're like-minded individuals, and that's who I want to do these experiences with. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'll say about the experiences is, and anytime, I was like, oh, well, me personally, because, everyone's situation is different, but if it was cheaper elsewhere, it's like, that doesn't matter. It's about the people. And that's who I wanted to do those experiences with. And outsiders can't do RY experiences, and maybe sometimes they can, but, and it makes sense, right? So that's important because you create those memories, those photos, those videos that we share at the end with those people. And I think that's what I'll kind of add to that. The any specifics is, people went not skydiving, but parajumping or whatever they did. I stayed away from those. But again, the meals that were cooked, like some of these are really, really curated. Going down rivers and into huts that people are making lunch for you, right? As you're hiking. Like there's so many that it's kind of tough for me to hone one on the spot. I'm sorry.
No, that's amazing, Alan. And I totally agree. At the end, it's all about the people, no? The people you meet, the people that are
Right.
on this journey with you, which takes me into probably my favorite part of the inclusions, which is the RY staff, which are those, local teams that you meet that are there for you in all of those destinations, or those community leaders that travel with you on the journeys. So let me share my screen again, and we dive into our last section of this webinar, which is the RY staff. So every destination at Remote Year, will have a local team dedicated to, provide everything that's needed while you're in that city. But all the support starts before you even start the program with our nation support. So answering all of your questions about, what you need to bring, what airports you need to fly into, suggestions about insurances, so much that you can get from the nation support. And then once you arrive in the city, there will be a local team from the city or a person that has lived in that city for many years, who is an expert that will show you, all the ins and out of the city, that will support everything that's needed. And then for the journeys, for the 4 and 12-month journeys, there will also be a dedicated person, a community leader, traveling with you into every destination, all along from day one until the final farewell in the last month. So regarding our teams, I would like to ask Jelani a very broad question. What do you have to say about the city teams that you met? I know you've done so many destinations, Jelani. So what do you have to say about all those city teams that you met all along?
What do I have to say about the city teams that I've met? First, shout out to Chrissy. She was one of the women in the picture there. She was my community leader in my first 4-month group. So shout out to her and Alando, who was on remote year number 2. But yeah, so the city team, I think they're invaluable. I mean, those are your local people there on the ground. I think like there are some other travel groups that I know don't actually provide that. And so you're kind of on your own to kind of figure it out. So like, I mean, between Oz here in Turkey, Dado in Havana, and Croatia, and them providing their knowledge of not just the city and your neighborhood, but just like the history of like where you are. That along with the walking tours that they provide is super informational. Basically anything about the city that you want to know about, what you should do, where you should go to eat, or have like a nice little rooftop bar, which is probably what we're going to be doing later tonight. You basically rely on them for everything city related. And I think without them, like remote year wouldn't be what it is, because like they kind of set the tone for the city to some respect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jelani. And I think, at least for me personally, it's so much better when I go and visit a new city with a friend that lives there, with someone that knows the place. Like it opens so many doors and access to so many things that you wouldn't have by just, being a tourist or, not having that local person. Um, is there any particular standout moment with any of the RY staff that you have met along the way?
There were many standout moments along the way with city teams and community leader. And I could sit here and give shout outs for 30 minutes. But what I will say is the main standout moment was the fact that, I went through a pretty difficult time in one of the cities, and the genuine support from the city team was very special. And to kind of what Jelani was saying, like having that friend, it feels like friends, right? In certain cities, in certain countries that you never even met, and that support system is huge. They drove me to an airport on their own time to share a story and so forth. I mean, you get bonds like this that you don't expect. You get experiences like that you don't expect. And even in Asia too, there were amazing standout moments where just with a simple conversation, you get to know people in a culture more so and in depth than you would have ever if you solo traveled, right? Because you just had that conversation with a local person or one of their family members or so forth. So, and obviously the community leader role is like huge in my opinion. And I think what they do is kind of unremarkable, and it's not easy how they do it, right? I'm sure there's fine lines they have to uh, dance around, but it's I can't say enough. I've traveled solo as well, and like you said, Juan, when you have dedicated people there, it takes your experience from 1x to 20x, in my opinion.
Thank you, Alan, and that's great to hear. What you're seeing and the experience that you had with all the, the city teams and the community leaders that you met. And then my last question goes for Sandy. What do you think is the biggest value that the city teams provided to your experience, Sandy?
Okay, biggest value? Oof. Well, I think like everybody was saying, it's like they're your personal concierge. And at the same time, your mom or dad or family. So basically, you've got this wealth of information as well as the caring that goes along with making sure that everything is okay. From making sure you have the right charger to make sure you get the right funds taken out of the right ATM, to maybe you need help sending clothes back home, whatever it is. But they're there for everything. And I think to maybe Alan's point too, when things are good, and they always are. But right, life takes on a life of its own, and sometimes people get sick and things like that. I happened to personally get sick when I was had COVID rather, in one of the countries in Spain. Jules Ortega, who is like the just jewel of the world, literally, really took care of everything. As my team went on to or my crew went on to Cape Town, I had to stay quarantined in a hotel room, kind of like Anna Delvey for a while. And so I was there, but at the same time, not only did, Julian, he just took care of everything or just kept reaching out. There was enormous support from everybody in the remote year community, not just the people that I left. And to the point that Joanna, who is also my community leader, she was in Guatemala at the time, and she'd been my community leader in, Croatia. She reached out and she said, "Hey, I hear you're there, but if you have a, negative test coming up, we'd love to have you in Guatemala." Well, sure enough, I made a little plot twist change and hopped on a plane the minute I got a great test. And sure enough, she said, "We'll have transport waiting for you." And again, this wasn't even included in the remote year thing. I would have had to pay for it, and I would gladly have done that. But the remote year wanted to make sure that they felt so badly I couldn't continue on to Cape Town that they took care of everything. And it's amazing. It really, you're very well taken care of. And that's all I can say. Sickness and health, it's all good. That's all.
That's amazing, Sandy. And what amazing stories you all shared with us. I think it's so valuable for everyone to hear those stories from your perspective. So definitely thank you very, very much for joining us today. But before we move on to the Q&A session, I would like to send out that poll again, the one that I asked at the beginning, and see if anything changed. After hearing all the details about what's included, I would love to see if what's more important to you of what remote year includes has changed, or are we still at experiences and number 2, accommodation. So I'm going to do the poll again. 1 second. You should be seeing the poll on your screens. And again, if you're on LinkedIn, you can write on the chat box if accommodation, co-work, events and experiences, or staff support is what's most important to you now out of the inclusions at remote year. This is very interesting. I'm gonna share the results. We still have the events and experiences as number 1. However, there is a shift in the staff support on the ground versus the accommodation. And I really think, as I said at the beginning of the staff support section, I really believe that that's my favorite part of the inclusions, and that our teams on the ground really bring a lot of value to the experiences when you visit our cities. So again, thank you very much, everyone, and I will pass it back to Jermiel for some Q&A.
The burning questions, there are about 4 or 5 different burning questions that we got. So I'll go through these in no particular order. For 1 month, for 1 year programs, are there payment models or is it all up front? Very, very good question. If it was all up front, I don't know what to tell you. It is not. The only thing that is due up front for the year-long programs is a down payment. Okay, only a down payment. The rest is in monthly payments. Sort of consider it like rent, right? And those are due every 20th of the month prior, right? So another question number 2 is, are the accommodation fees separate from the program fees? For 4-month and 12-month programs, it's all included in one cost, but for the 1-month programs that you saw earlier, you have to select whether you want accommodations or not. So 4-month and 12-month, it's all inclusive. 1 month, you can decide if you want your own accommodations on the side. Next question we had in the chat was, are shared apartments with other remote year participants? Yes, yes, yes. We would never put you in an apartment with someone who is outside of our community. Never. We would never do that. More specifically, they will always be a part of your program, okay? Not just a part of remote year participants. They will always be a part of your program. Next question that we got is, how do we handle couples? This is a really great question. So couples actually do get a little bit of a discount. We provide 25% off of their monthly fee and a shared bedroom. So couples would stay in the same bedroom. Everything else would still be the same. Another question here, just breezing through these. Can couples share private rooms in shared apartments? Yes, they can. This is actually the most common situation, but for for a lot, it makes sense for them to get their own private apartment. You would only need to get your own apartment if you booked a private apartment. So yes, and kind of thing. If a couple wants to share an apartment with their travel mates, they can, but if they want their own private accommodations, they can get that as well with that 25% discount. Next question we have here is, do people work overnight when doing remote year in Asia? As someone who did a 12-month with a 4-month stint in Asia, yes, I had to work overnight, but the incredible support that I got from the city teams, the co-working spaces being 24 hours. So if I wanted to work from home, I could, but if I wanted to work from the office, I could. It was always open and available. So yes, not all, but some do. And then another question here with this last minute that we have is, Have any of the panelists ever done a program with a significant other? So I'll pass this over to any of you all, or if you ever had anyone come join during your trip anywhere around the world, I'd love to open this up to anyone who may shed some light on that. Because we do allow for you to bring someone to join you for a limited amount of time.
I'll jump in for a moment if you'd like. I had my daughter join me for a week, and we had a fabulous time. And again, just let Remote Year know, and she was included in everything, and it was really, really fabulous. And that was in Croatia.
Nice. I know I also had 2 people join me when in Latin America, my cousin and my best friend, and they were like, we're going live in Medellin, Colombia. We're coming to visit you. This is our reason. So this could also be the door to open up for your friends and family to come and start their international travel journey as well. Well, folks, that about does it for today's webinar. We thank you so much for joining us. We hope we got to as many of the questions that you had. If we did not, please feel free to reach out to us at hello@remoteyear.com. We'd be more than happy to connect with you via email and answer any questions. And with that, we hope to see you on the road. All right, everyone, have a good rest of your afternoon, and wherever you are around the world, afternoon, night, evening, day, etc. Take care. Bye.